Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona. Feel free to ask any questions in the question bar. And Pia, let us begin with our first question.
Ajahn, I just want to say that this is the completion of your 35th Vasa, your reigns, and I want to congratulate you. You've now lived more than half of your life as a monk. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Right, so if you do the basic math, you'll know how old I am. 35 and 35 is 70, but actually I'm 69. Yes, 35 years since my ordination, 35 rains. Vasa means rains, rainy seasons. So this is the final day of my 35th rainy season as a fully ordained Theravada Buddhist monk. So, with that, let us proceed with questions.
Ajahn, our first question is from Upasaka I from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Dear Ajahn, could you kindly explain what Bhavanga means and give an example of it? Can one become aware of it during meditation?
Bhavanga, the two words that make it up, bhava and anga. Bhava means being, and anga means factor or limb. The factor of existence is what it is. And it's really primarily an Abhidhamma term. Abhidhamma is the third section of what's called the Tipitaka, or the three baskets, which are the complete teachings of the Buddha. The first part is the suttas, and then the Vinaya. The suttas are the discourses of the Buddha and some of his disciples. And the second part, the Vinaya, are the rules of conduct for monks and nuns. And the third is something called the Abhidhamma. And that is sometimes translated as the higher Dhamma or the analytical Dhamma, but it could also be translated as around the Dhamma. These kind of technical terms are examined in the Abhidhamma, and Bhavanga is said to be this stream of consciousness somehow, or a stream of existence that keeps flowing underneath. So when you're asleep, and also in the deepest states of meditation where such things as feeling and perception is suspended, still there's a bhavanga going on. The underground stream is flowing still. So they say. It's fairly irrelevant to ordinary practices of the Dhamma and the concentration. It's kind of some sort of idea that it must be there. There must be a continuum of existence streaming despite all the various states of consciousness. So, was there more to the question than that? Yeah, Bhavanga. People get carried away with this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't concern myself too much with its function or anything like that. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live stream from Terry in New York City, United States. Sometimes I feel guilty that I'm not using my time in the most perfect way. Learning an instrument, painting, writing poetry, sometimes I think, is this just a waste of my time? How do these kinds of activities align to skill in handicraft being a highest blessing? How might I enjoy these activities without guilt or suffering?
Well, there is some disparity between worldly crafts and skills. I mean, when we say a highest blessing, we're really saying a blessing. It is not the highest blessing. It's a blessing in life to have skills, because then you can have livelihood, you have interactions with others, you can make things and do things. So without any skills, you are cast to the margins of society, unless you have rich parents or something, So that's what is meant by a blessing. So this hobbyist kind of attitude to things, distracting yourselves, is difficult. It's hard to just live a monastic life unless you're in a monastery. So with supporting conditions, so then you will just find things to do, and learning a new instrument, so forth, is one of the things you do. And it's not bad by any means, but of course it is not striving for the highest possibilities. But the Buddha didn't expect that people would be able to carry that out. Some people can. They live a very devoted spiritual life in the household life, and to attain levels of enlightenment, and the distractions fall away. The desire to distract oneself fall away as well. So just put it in perspective. It's not a bad thing. It is a blessing in life, and in the lay life, you need these crafts and skills. You just have to have them. But at the same time, that's why the Buddha does set up a sangha, and hopefully monasteries have good conditions for meditation, and allow one to focus on that. The other opportunity for lay people is to go to a retreat. Go to a retreat sometimes, and they will ask you to put aside all distractions and other activities. Not all activities are harmful to your practice. Even in monasteries, we have to sweep the floor, we have to wash our bowls, and wash our clothes, and do various chores. And these are actual duties that are listed by the Buddha to be done by monks and nuns. And when lay people come to the monastery, they also participate in yogi chores, helping the monastery function. These are not necessarily at odds with the practice. But if you're just looking for something to do and ways to distract yourself, then it is an avoidance of facing yourself and meditation as well. Okay, next question.
Next question is from Kumanyan from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Dear Ajahn, I hear some teachers say the Buddhists can enjoy good things. I'm having a hard time reconciling it with inappropriate attention being the cause of the hindrances, with the right resolve and the renunciation parami. I'm working on deriving my pleasure from generosity, renunciation, virtue, brahmaviharas, and samadhi. I don't want to misrepresent the Dhamma. Hearing we can enjoy worldly pleasures as well, I wonder if I'm missing something.
Well, yes, your practice of generosity and focus on meditation is the higher pleasure. It is a pleasure. It is, in fact, a higher pleasure than the pleasures of just sight, sound, smells, tastes, touches, and ideas. So you have it correct in your assessment. And when people say, yeah, you can enjoy yourself and do the Dhamma kind of thing, you can see that in the monastic life, the Buddha restricts the possibilities for the monks. And so it must be supportive to set aside the distractions of the sensory experiences so that one can concentrate on developing a deeper and longer lasting happiness straight from the peace of the mind. At the same time, and in the relative level, most people are not going to live a life of renunciation, generosity, and meditation. And so what are the lesser happinesses of the household life? And the Buddha does say, one is fortunate to have intact the sense of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. These are the 5 chords of sense experience and sense appreciation. And to be able to appreciate sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches is a happiness. And that one can do that is actually the results of previous good actions. So, if you're a layperson and you don't meditate and you can't appreciate the beauty of sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches, then you really have a pretty shallow and difficult life. You're primarily in a kind of a state of stupor or pain. So this is what is meant. There's two levels of this practice. And one is for the ordinary household life, kind of a healthy, not overindulgence enjoyment of pleasant sights, rainbows and the weather and art and beautiful things, etc. That those are worldly things, but obviously in the context of the Dhamma, they don't last. So one has to be aware of that. What happens, though, sometimes, very interesting, there's a period in life when you start to feel it, that the experiences of the senses are shallow. And you've been there, done that. You feel kind of jaded. Is this all there is? So you have enjoyed them, but you are now saying, is this the whole of life, or is there anything more to it than this? At that point, you kind of, some people, well, you can mistake it for depression, and sometimes it is a depression. It's a lack, when you're questioning these things, they cease to, fulfill you. And then you're looking for possible greater depth in life, and that's when you come to the spiritual practice. And then, but for a while, perhaps your spiritual practice doesn't blossom, and so you're caught in between. And this is the kind of the halfway place. This is the dry land, where you have kind of awakened from worldly intoxication, but you haven't replaced it with spiritual fulfillment. And that is a fairly famous middle ground in the practice. But when you go through that and your practice starts to be fulfilling, and you feel well in the simplest way, without having to distract yourselves with sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches. Strangely enough, because that kind of heaviness and dryness has been lifted from you, ordinary experiences, just having a meal with people, taking a walk, seeing children play, petting a dog, that kind of stuff, is quite beautiful, because your spirit is not burdened. You're light. Your heart is light now, and your mind is light, and you've solved your existential puzzle to some degree. You may not be fully enlightened, but even you can have some degree of the experience of enlightenment before real, full enlightenment, and it means that the burden of life, the grayness of life, has been lifted, and you feel very well, and then just the simplest things are just fine, So that's the curious side effect of practice and stages that you go through as well. Okay, Pia.
Next question is from the live stream from Vlad in Bulat, Russian Federation. Venerable Sir, please tell me about the role Dhammapada plays in the Buddhasasana theory and practice. What kind of guide is this book?
The Dhammapada are sayings of the Buddha collected by monks. It's usually found in the fifth collection the Khuddaka Nikaya. And the Khuddaka Nikaya, the fifth collection of the suttas, is where you find anthologies. You will find the Theragatha, which are the sayings of the elder monks. Little poems or paragraph or two about their enlightenment experience. There's also the Therigatha, which is the enlightenment experiences of nuns. Little anthologies, collected sayings. These are the work of monks, collections of monks. They have the roots in the Dhamma. They're kind of the Reader's Digest, and maybe they don't have it in Russia, or I don't even know whether it exists anymore, Reader's Digest. It's kind of like, it's made for lay people. There's 400 and something verses. Very, very effective, very moving. It might be something like the New Testament of Buddhism. If you got, the New Testament for Christians is quite a small little book, So this is a very beautiful series of thoughts, very moving, well worth getting a copy of it. And all of the sayings and teachings in there also have commentaries with them. So it's a fairly large volume. It turns out to be I think the aim was to have something for lay people that they could just have nourishment with, and they could remember some of the verses. And then the monks added all kinds of commentaries and backstories to it, so it turns out to be quite a chunky collection of sayings. But it's very beautiful, very, very, a great entrance to the ideas of Buddhism. If you just read it straight and you have no idea about the teachings of the Buddha, you may not understand it. Some of the things will hit you very strongly. Let me give you an example. Say, I think the third and fourth verse. He beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts and you live in hatred. He beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in goodwill. This is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. So just two things can solve a lot of your problems. You realize that as long as you do, in this life, people get beaten, abused, thrown down, robbed, discarded, badly treated. And if they live with aversion of anger and hostility about that, it never ends. And there is no ending except when it ends. And how does it end? In non-hatred. That's how it ends. And this is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. This is the way it is. It'll always be this way because we inflict suffering on ourselves. So, it's just a couple of verses. Very, very beautiful, very profound. It can change a person's life. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on.
Our next question is from Upasika Jodika from Elmshorn, Germany. Dear Ajahn Sona, my question is about KAMMA and vipaka. As KAMMA is related to intention and volitional action, how relevant is the age of a person and the ability to judge his or her actions? I.e., it happens that teenagers, age of 12 or 13, kill another teenager of the same age group out of revenge. It seems to be different for an adult person, but is that really the case?
Well, it's different in terms of law in different places at different times, but KAMMA, the killing of another human being, when you're 12 or 13, it still requires volition and the determination to kill somebody. And there will be definite consequences. The workings of KAMMA are quite sophisticated, but yes, at the age of, when you can generate the volition to kill and you go ahead and do it, then there will be results. And it is quite severe results as well. So there is a kind of a universal law of cause and effect in the moral dimension, and that is what kamma and vipaka is. Kamma being the intentional action and vipaka being the resultant, and it always rebounds on the person who makes the intention and carries it out. Yeah, it's pretty bleak universe. The Buddha talks about the situation where somebody has done really negative things and they end up being reborn in the lower realms that are very, very painful and for huge, long stretches of time. And then eventually, the kind of the sentence is over. So the universe is functioning something like a prison. And then the person reemerges into the human realm, but they reemerge in a bad situation, in a bad family, difficult situation, and then they are associated with other negative people, and they do it again. And then their life is shortened, and they proceed to go back into the lower realms. It sounds like the absence of God, and indeed, from a Buddhist point of view, we can't reconcile it with a sort of kindly God running things. So it's just the way the universe runs. The opposite happens where a person is born into a very beautiful, lovely situation, and they are encouraged to do good deeds and generosity and so forth, and they're reborn in the heavens, and then they spend countless time in the heavens, and then when they die, by the way, so heaven doesn't last forever. That's a Christian idea, perhaps. The Buddhist idea is that there are heavens, but they're not eternal. They're very beautiful, exquisite, and they last for a long time, but then eventually it ends, but the person ends up back in a fortunate, say, human situation, and they're encouraged to do all kinds of beautiful things, and then they end up back in heaven. So you have to be very, very careful. If you're in a difficult situation, a young person, you need to work your way out and be very careful, guarded, and that the universe doesn't seem to excuse like the fact that you're born into a difficult situation. It's merciless in some ways. It's very problematic. Yeah, so there you go.
Our next question is from the live stream from JJ in Seoul, Korea. Recently, I am trying to keep the 5 precepts of Buddhism, but when I am stressed, I eat a lot of food and regret it. I recently realized that my desire cannot be satisfied and that I have been doing useless things to satisfy it, as I realize that desire is the cause of suffering.
Yeah, sometimes the only thing left is the fridge, right? So that's the last thing to go is the fridge. Yeah, ice cream, Rocky Road ice cream. Well, yeah, at least it's not all that evil. So it's just displacement of satisfaction. So we have to be able to cultivate more satisfaction, internal satisfaction. You notice that in monastic life, the monks should not eat after noon until the following day. So there is a deprivation of availability of food, and one will have to nourish oneself without physical food, so that spiritual food has to be the replacement for that. Most people are not ready for that. They're in an endless chase for sensory satisfaction. A sight and a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch, another sound, a smell. So you listen to music for a while, and then you can't listen to it forever. You have to go out and get something to eat, but you can't eat forever. Eventually you're just full, and then you got to go maybe see a movie, and then you go out on a date, in a romance or something like that, and then you keep. So this is called the monkey mind. By the way, this phrase monkey mind is quite often used in meditation circles, and quite often people, even the teachers, don't understand what it is. Monkey mind doesn't mean that you're just restless, that you're just bouncing around like a monkey. The idea is that the monkey swings through the trees and it grasps from one branch to another looking for fruit. So you let go of one branch and you grab to another. And what is the branches and what is the monkey? The monkey is your mind, and it's swinging through the sensory experiences of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and ideas. And it lets go of a sight to grab to a sound. It lets go of a sound to grab to a taste. It lets go of a taste to grab to a touch, a physical sensation. Or it lets go of that to grab to an idea, an interesting idea. So it's condemned to swing through the forest, the jungle of sensory experience in a perpetual restlessness. And so that's what we want to reflect on that. Can't I be at peace? Can't I be satisfied? And then we go on that search for a way to be at peace without endlessly swinging through the jungle of sensory experience. So it seems to have occurred to you, and by the way, you're keeping your 5 precepts, which is very good. That's the beginning, and it is the beginning of the establishment of serenity of the mind. So you need that virtue when it's well kept in a thoughtful way. When you understand the nature of virtue, then it leads very naturally to a serenity of mind, which leads you away from the relentless pursuit of sensory experience. Yeah.
Next question. Yes. Next question is from Anonymous in Stanford, Kentucky, United States. Dear Ajahn Sona, would it be correct to say that one does not know they have attained 4th jhana until they come down from 4th jhana?
Well, I want to say something about this 4th jhana and jhana in general. When people hear this language about the jhanas, there's kind of 2 reactions to it. One is like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do that. Maybe I've done it already, yeah, I was in jhana. And then there's the other type that think, well, it's impossible. We even in Buddhist history, it's very clear that even at the time of the Buddha, that there seems to be a huge number of people who attained enlightenment and attained jhana at the time of the Buddha, but it was a very time of spiritual abundance, and the Buddha was around. They seemed to be like super talented. As time went on, and this is more or less the prediction of the Buddha, that things would decline. And then we have texts like in the 5th century AD, almost 1,000 years after the Buddha, the Sri Lankan Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, is a summary of it's like a teacher's manual. And there they are very pessimistic about the ability of almost anybody to attain jhana, including the monks at the time. That these are very, very, very difficult, very high states. They are supernormal states, and that it seems they seem to have run a poll of the various monasteries, and nobody seems to be managing them, or one in 10,000 monks or something. So you see this commentarial negativity, pessimism. So a lot of monks have been influenced by that text. It's a very important text, and so some schools of monks, when you go and tell them, I'm not sure whether I've got the 3rd or the 4th jhana. I think I was in the 4th jhana. They will just look at you incredulously and say, you're not even close. You haven't not even the 1st jhana. Other schools seem to be more affirming of this. And there's a kind of a jhana light school, light as in, maybe not actually jhana. So you have a spectrum of people teaching jhanas and defining them. It would appear, though, very clearly that in the time of the Buddha, And in the suttas, the definitions of the fourth jhana is extraordinarily refined. And so please do not shortchange yourself by thinking you have attained the fourth jhana, and you may not even be in the first. Please hold it to an extraordinarily high standard, exceptional level of sustained consciousness, which is generally not available to ordinary people whatsoever. It's like saying, I went out and I think I'm ready for the Olympic team. I went out and I was playing in the snow in the backyard, and I think I could probably do the men's downhill in the Olympics now. So was I doing that? I don't think so. It is a very high level of refined, trained consciousness, and not to underestimate it, because you only cheat yourself when you do that. Yeah. Okay.
Next question is from the live stream from Peaceful Mind. The skin of a young person is beautiful and attractive, but when I look at the skin of an old man, I think that what I thought was good was suffering in the end. Am I right to reflect like this?
I would say so. Yes, I would say so. It ain't pretty at the end. Okay, next question.
Next question is also from the live stream from Emperor Palpatine. In MN2, the Buddha says that, quote, I have no self, and, quote, I only perceive a self while having no self, alongside views of a self existing, are both wrong views that result from attending unwisely. Doesn't this contradict no self as a fundamental teaching of the Buddha if he is rejecting all views of a self?
Well, that's a question that has come up, and the so first of all, for the audience, MN means Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length sayings. And there's all kinds of suttas on anatta, which means for some people it's very clearly defined as no self, and others would say it's really non-self. So some would say that it's not, the Buddha is not saying there's no self, but that the five khandhas, the body, the feelings, perception, consciousness, and volition, these are said to be the entirety of a person, that those are not self, those things. And it's very, very clear. There's a sutta, the second, I think it's the second sutta in the longer length sayings, Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, meaning the marks of no self or non-self. And it goes through each of the five khandhas, five groups, and shows that there's no self. Now, what is meant by self is that there is no something which is in command of those things, controlling those things. So he says, if the body was self, then you could say to the body, don't be ill. But the body, you can't tell the body not to be sick. You can't tell it not to age, etc. It goes by itself. You have no command over it. So could something where you have no command or control over it, could it be yourself? Would it make sense? And feelings, your feelings, so you would say, don't have painful feelings. If your feelings were yourself, then you could say, no painful feelings, thank you. You might say all pleasurable feelings, but painful feelings come, pleasurable feelings go, is something which is transient like that, and out of your command. Could that be yourself? Is that something worthy of being yourself? So he goes through all of the five khandhas, and we end up without anything, him ever pointing to something which could be called the self. So the absence of anything that can be called self. So some would say, here's the conclusion. we went through, first he says, the five khandhas are all. There is nothing outside the khandhas or inside the khandhas, which is not included. And in all, if that is all, and in none of the five we find a self, then what are we left with, class, for our conclusion? There is no self. Others would say, well, he doesn't say that explicitly. There must be something left because the five khandhas cease at the death of the enlightened person, the fully enlightened person, the what's called an arahant, a person who's fully enlightened. The five khandhas cease without remainder. And they would hold that, but it's not just extinction, not just annihilation. So there must be some other kind of consciousness of some sort that is remaining, which is not the consciousness in the five khandhas. This is the problem. It's never been resolved, and you have two camps on this. Personally, it's very clear to me that there is no self. Others would say it's not clear at all. It's non-self, not no self. I just by mortal logic, the logic of mere mortals, is that if, from whatever the Buddha is saying, it appears to be no self. So whatever little confusion is in that little list in the Majjhima Nikaya, there are people who would say, well, that's just a confusion of language there, that what is being said clearly throughout the entire Pali Canon is that there's no self to be found, no self to be found. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go on from there, yeah.
Our next question is from Regis in Quebec, Canada. Dear Ajahn Sona, in Buddhist texts, consciousness is described as an uninterrupted stream of cittas. I understand that cittas, considered individually, are impermanent and anatta, but I can't help thinking about the stream of cittas as something permanent, uninterrupted by death and forming the root of myself. Can you help me to rectify this wrong view?
Yeah, so it's like saying the droplets or the molecules of water in a river are impermanent, but the river is permanent. So the river is nothing but the moments. So what you really have is just a collection of moments. There isn't something which is not the moments. So each of the moments rises and passes away in an endless flow, and a continuous flow as well. So it's just a matter of language, perhaps a confusion of logic. When we talk about the contents of the river, that the river apart from the contents of the river, you really can't talk about the river contents. You can't talk about the river apart from its contents. It's typically of language. So we have where I am, there's a river called the Fraser River. And it's a noun. It's named after a guy named Fraser. So, but is there a Fraser River? Everything within that is flowing and moving and changing all the time. So there isn't really a Fraser River. There is a Frasering River. So there are no nouns. There are no things. There are just processes in this universe. And even physicists will talk about that. There's a kind of a quantum soup process, which is the fundamental energy flux of the universe. The more you look down, smaller and smaller into the universe, the more things disappear, and flux is all that's observable. What the flux is made out of, is made out of, is impossible to define. Language runs out and concepts run out. So we are in this endlessly flowing. The we are also flowing. There's flow within flow within flow. And there's no thingness in the midst of that flow. There's a philosopher, the Greek philosopher Heraclitus also said this, that, he's the one that said, you can't step in the same river twice. It's not the same river. It's very hard for human consciousness to grasp flow and talking about flow. We tend to take snapshots of things, like still photos rather than videos, and we think in terms of things, solid objects. But on closer examination and scrutiny, we fail to find the thingness in a person, like yourself, a thing within that flow of aspects of yourself, within your body and within your feelings, within your thoughts. We find no enduring, stable entity, which would be called yourself. Yeah, let's go on to the next question.
Next question is from the live stream from the One. How to get over feelings of worthlessness from being rejected by parents and sent to an orphanage since I was a toddler due to autism, while other siblings were shown love their whole life by my parents.
How to get over that? Well, yeah, if we dwell on it, there is no way over it. The only way out of it, it never ends by resentment. It never ends by feeling that it shouldn't have happened. It only ends when you let go of that. And so that's the case. You have to not, it should not occur to you anymore. You have to let go of that story. The story is true, but if you dwell on it, it will never, ever end. And it only ends by ceasing. So you got to get that clear in your mind that there is one way and only one way out of that resentment and feeling of rejection and so forth, and is when you stop thinking about it. Yeah.
Next question is from Sebastian in Berlin, Germany. Dear Ajahn, in the suttas, Buddha Gotama often refers to the Buddhas of the past or tells stories of his encounters with them in his previous lives. In our present aeon, there are 3 Buddhas that preceded our recent Buddha: Buddha Kakusanda, Kanagamana, and Kassapa. I struggle to put them into a historical context. It seems they must have lived millions or even billions of years ago. How does this fit with our understanding of human evolution?
It doesn't. You're quite right to be struggling with it. It just doesn't work at all. Unless we're there's present scientific ideas about the age of the Earth and so forth is wrong, then that cosmology about the previous Buddhas in this world system doesn't fit. But maybe they were right, and modern geology is wrong. The age of the Earth is a fairly recent kind of information. I mean, if you'd brought Buddhist ideas to the West in the 18th century, the French Academy of Sciences would have dismissed it as absolutely absurd, because they knew perfectly well that the Earth is only a few thousand years old. If you look at the biblical scholars that think the Earth was 6,000 years old, I think it was Bishop Ussher that managed to work out the age of the Earth at 6,000 years. You get into the 19th century, and the best estimates, sort of the outside estimates by the leading physicists of the time, even into the early part of the 20th century, was 20 million years. And it was only when they came across atomic theory that the half-life of the atomic half-life was brought into it, and it jumped from the leading estimate. What is that term for absolute zero? What's the Kelvin? Yes, Lord Kelvin was the leading physicist of the late 19th century and early 20th century, and his best estimate, based on sort of the heat temperatures of the Earth, was that it was 20 million or around there, 20 million years old. And the new physics, the new atomic physics, was brought to a conference. Kelvin was about 90 at the time, and he was sitting in the front row. And this physicist, who was probably 25 years old, had to announce that they now estimate that the Earth was like 2.5 billion years old. I mean, Kelvin smiled graciously from the audience, knowing the young man was ridiculously wrong. But of course, Kelvin was ridiculously wrong. And of course, they were both ridiculously wrong, because now it's estimated to be 4.35 billion years old. And I think in my lifetime, it's aged about 1.5 billion years. I think, for some strange reason, I got it all mixed up in my little head, because the population when I was going to, in grade 1 or 2 was 3 billion, and the Earth was 3 billion years old, and then everything changed. Now there's 8 billion of us, and the Earth is 4.35 billion years old. Like, what the heck? What's going on? How could in my life the Earth have aged 1.35 billion years? I think the last sort of solid estimate of the final refined estimate of the age of the Earth was established in 2007. And it was to do with moon rocks, they could independently affirm through moon rocks. So now at present, it's 4.35 billion. And humans apparently have not been around for more than 1 million years. Most of the reasonable civilization is only 50,000, any kind of cave paintings and that kind of stuff. So there's some guesses, scientific guesses, and they don't line up with Buddhist ideas of this age. So all I can do is present you with the two sources of information. We're not fundamentalists in that case. We don't care, really. These are perhaps just interesting stories. What we really care about as Buddhists is there is suffering, and there is a way out of suffering. And that is the teaching of the Buddha. He says, formerly as now, I teach two things. I teach there is suffering, and there is an end to it. Everything else, in terms of the information that the Buddha offers, is really not the essence, not the main feature of it. It should not be over concerned with literalities or precision about anything else than this pursuit of the possibility of non-suffering, of cessation of suffering within the humans. Yeah. Okay.
Next question is from the live stream from Ross in Minnesota, United States. Dear Ajahn Sona, could you please explain what the Buddha said about capacities for intuition?
Well, there are humans have remarkable capacities for intuition, and these are usually called supernormal psychic capacities. People, it's astonishing what some people can do. I mean, absolute memory of virtually every moment of their life. I mean, I don't know whether have seen some of these demonstrations. There are certain people who seem to be able to recall any hour of their life in great detail. There are people who can recall, vast reams of numbers and everything they've read as well. There are people who have fantastic capacities for imagination, and they produce it in art and in music and sculpture. Fantastic intellectual capacities that we can't even understand. There's Einsteins and Aristotles and brilliant people who, how does Newton calculate the movement of the planets without any apparatus? I don't know. It's astonishing. So there also in the intuitive psychic area, there are people who have these incredible talents. And we're in a particularly skeptical period, I think, with this scientific physicalism is dominant now. But nevertheless, a lot of people, even the physicalist scientists, have weird experiences sometimes in life, but it's not admitted to sort of conventional science at the moment. The intuition is fully described, all kinds of capacities, including past life memory, and all kinds of visions of other dimensions of existence, to see into them and even to appear in them and to communicate with beings in other dimensions of existence are some of the so-called intuitive or psychic capacities that the Buddha talks about. This is what is very precisely described in the suttas as well. So very fascinating, yeah.
Next question is from the live stream from John S. How can someone with a disability cultivate right livelihood?
Well, right livelihood is just the absence of wrong livelihood. So one way or the other, if you can live without selling drugs or, selling weapons or poisons or something like this, then you have a form of right livelihood. Even if you don't have a form of, if you're just receiving benefits, if you're incapacitated and just receiving benefits, it's right livelihood. Because it isn't wrong livelihood. So it's more, the Buddha is warning you to stay out of, noxious things which cause harm to other beings, killing them or causing distress to them. So that's all it's meant. Whatever other livelihood one engages in is fine. But one needs skills. And this is one of the blessings of life, is that if you need to educate yourself, if you need to train yourself, if you need to learn a skill in order to have a livelihood, then you must do it, and it will be a blessing to you. Yeah. So I think we'll leave it for today. We have answered quite a few questions today, and we will be back next week.